Unlike our messy, mistake-filled lives in the real world, actors in film and television can get as many chances as they want to deliver the perfect zinger,
Oh, you know a bit, okay.
slide across the hood of a car with practiced ease, or bust a bottle over a goon's head. The magic of multiple takes and digital trickery means that Hollywood can erase even the gravest mistake. But anyone who's ever made a film will tell you that sometimes those mistakes are happy accidents just begging to be left in. Let's take a look at 10 goofs so good they made the cut. With over 50 years of television shows, movies, video games, and tie-in materials, Star Trek is no stranger to happy accidents that give the franchise little touches of verisimilitude. One example of this came in the franchise's most recent theatrical outing, 2016's Star Trek Beyond. Director Justin Lin brought a scrappy attitude to the series, complete with some complicated action sequences that were unlike anything that Trek had ever seen. But even the most carefully coordinated fight scene can go wrong. During a brawl between Chris Pine's Kirk and Idris Elba as Krall, Elba got a little too close to his scene partner and landed a punch on Pine's face. Pine sports the resulting black eye through the rest of the film, giving Kirk a little more credible battle damage than Shatner's traditional torn shirts. Tad Lasso! Now there's a thing that's very popular on the internet right now.
Oi mate, there's you.
I believe it is.
Wicked.
The story of Jason Sudeikis' good-natured fish-out-of-water football coach is a big hit for the Apple Plus streaming service.
I love that.
But it is also, and I'm sorry for this in advance, proven to be a hit in another way. Anyone? Anyway, in a Season 1 episode, Ted is a little too enthusiastic about leaving Rebecca's office, giving a little jump on his way out and slamming his head on the top of the doorframe. He goes down hard, and with a reason. Sudeikis has been pretty open about the fact that the impact was an accident, and the actor split his scalp open pretty badly. From one head hit to another, let's talk Star Wars. There's a pretty famous shot in A New Hope where a group of Stormtroopers burst into the Death Star control chamber where C-3PO and R2-D2 have been hiding out. Unfortunately, one of the actors who donned the armor for that scene was Laurie Good, who turned out to be a little tall for a Stormtrooper. Get it? Anyway, and he clocked his head on the bottom of the door. It's a funny moment for sure, and it does just as much to take the menace out of the Empire's finest as their poor aim does. If we learned anything from Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy, it should be that when Viggo Mortensen goes hard, he goes hard. Between training hard enough to get permission to use an actual steel weapon on set, committing deeply to the character, doing his own writing and stunts, and deflecting that thrown knife, the guy was just a beast on set. Like most major productions, there were plenty of injuries on the set, but most of the time, you cut away from it instead of using the pain. Not so with the Two Towers. Ooh, I hope you guys are ready for this, because I'm about to be the guy who points this out every time we watch the movie. When Aragorn kicks that orc helmet towards the camera and collapses in grief and pain, that reaction is fueled by the fact that Viggo broke 2 toes during that take. The production moved on, but then the actor had to do multiple days of shots when he's running around Rohan on a busted foot. It's no wonder the guy looked so tired. Chris Pratt has long since made the jump from goofball comedy dudes to action hero leading men.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.
But that side of him still shines through in many of his roles. This transition is probably the most obvious in the first Guardians of the Galaxy, where Pratt stopped being the Parks and Rec guy and started being, well, Chris Pratt. Coming from a comedic background, he brought a healthy affinity for improv to the MCU, and nowhere is this more obvious than the scene in the Collector's Gallery where the actor fumbled the sphere with the Infinity Stone inside. Thankfully, he was able to snatch the orb up before it hit the ground, presenting it with a grin and a wink that made the accident seem well rehearsed. Derek Zoolander has an important question to ask all of us. Why male models? Ben Stiller's, heroic leading man may be dumber than a sack of rocks, but it is still a good question when he asks it of David Duchovny's disgraced hand model, J.P. Pruitt. The answer, of course, is that they're pliant, fit, can go anywhere, and will do whatever someone with a camera says, making them the perfect assassins. Whatever Derek was supposed to say when he had this revealed to him is likely to be lost to the sands of time, though. Stiller blanked on his next line and instead decided to ask that all-important question again. Sometimes you just have to hear something twice to have it really sink in. I wonder, though, why male models? Leonardo DiCaprio has forged an interesting career for himself as a likable guy who is perfectly willing to suffer for his work and get the job done. I mean, the stories about the production of The Revenant alone, oh my god. At least those trials were planned out well in advance and done as safely as possible. Not so on the set of Django Unchained. Quentin Tarantino's first out-and-out Western features DiCaprio as the psychotic, slave-keeping plantation owner Calvin Candy. As the film closes in on its climax, Candy delivers a lecture on phrenology at the dinner table before exploding into sudden violence and smashing a glass between his hand and the table. The only problem? That wasn't scripted. Left with a large, bleeding gash in his hand, Leo powered through the pain and finished the take, even going so far as to pick a little bit of glass out of his palm on camera. Blade Runner is a major pillar in the pantheon of science fiction film, but come on! You know that it was a nightmare to shoot. All of that rain and those dark sets were just begging for an endless series of accidents and injuries. One of those mishaps came for actress Daryl Hannah during shooting, and it made it into the final cut. As the replicant Pris, it is Hannah's job to get the rogue Nexus 6s into the Tyrell Corporation by bonding with engineer J.F. Sebastian. She does this by playing quiet and scared around the lonely Sebastian, even fleeing from him at one point. Now, a lot of Pris's action in the film is acrobatic in nature, so it makes sense that Hannah, a trained gymnast herself, would do some of her own stunts. It's during this scene that she runs and tumbles away into the street, and while they captured the stunt on that take, she also slipped in some standing water on set and smashed her elbow against the window of a car, shattering the glass and chipping her elbow in 8 places. Yikes. Here comes Leo again, but thankfully there's less blood and shattered glass this time. As a much younger man on the set of his big breakout hit 1997's Titanic, he hit upon one of those happy little accidents that can make scripted dialogue feel so much more natural. Asked by his love Rose to draw her in the nude like one of his French girls, Jack goes along with things and manages to keep his cool until she is disrobed and stands before him. Asked where he wants her, Leo flubs his line, telling her to lie on the bed before immediately correcting himself that she should be on the couch. It's just a little slip-up, but when left in, it speaks volumes to the character's nervousness and need to get things right.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
It's one of the most famous and frequently quoted lines in the history of film, and a regular placer on the American Film Institute's top 100 quotes list. Uttered by Roy Scheider's Chief Brody just as the film is getting ready to kick into its finale, this line isn't just an ad-lib on the actor's part, but a reference to some of Jaws' behind-the-scenes production woes. It turns out that due to budget constraints on the set of Jaws, the production was left using a small barge to haul equipment and production staff around on days that they were shooting on the open water. Because it was such a complicated shoot, Spielberg and his people needed a lot of gear and rarely had enough space for what they needed. This led the crew to tell each other, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," when asked to pile extra gear onto the barge. Later, when the time came for Scheider to finally see the shark in person, he blanked on his scripted line and went for the laugh instead. And there we go, 10 times that actors goofed up and made themselves so human that it had to be left in the film. We could probably do another one of these, all about stars cutting themselves on glass and mirrors, but until then, thanks for watching.
Well, I hope I'm not a suspect anymore. Good luck, officer. I hope you find your man.